Alright, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called The Undead, 1957. This is going to be another AIP Roger Corman flick. I'm giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I just like this movie. It's got the gothic fog. It reminded me of Dark Shadows, mainly because the leading actress is like Victoria Winters in some respects, but instead of a governess, she's a prostitute. Had to throw some Roger Corman debauch in there, and rather than going through time via Dark Shadows, the lady goes through time through hypnosis or some kind of magical Tibetan Buddhist trick. It's all very confusing to me. Nothing is explained. The ending doesn't make any sense. And anyway, there's this hotshot psychiatrist guy who's into hypnotism. He flunked the professor's psychiatry course, so he goes back there, brings a prostitute with him, and the professor guy protests a lot about his methods, but he doesn't really do anything to stop it. He's kind of enabling the whole thing, which doesn't make any sense. And and so the failed student puts the prostitute under hypnosis with his hand, to some kind of hypnotism with his hand, and she goes back in time, similar to the she creature. It's almost a sequel to the she creature in that respect. Anyways, she transports back into medieval times, the times of King Arthur, I guess, or the times of the Crusades, I guess, the Inquisition. I don't remember the exact year, probably 1200s or something, and she's turns out that she's a witch, or a wrongly accused pseudo witch, similar to Victoria Winters. So now I know where Dan Curtis got the idea for the Dark Shadows going back in time. Probably got it from the Undead, because a lot of the ideas here are stolen from for Dark Shadows, I think. And anyways, getting back to the movie, so the witch is in jail. She hears a voice of herself, Diana, in the future. I don't understand why Diana's body is still sitting on the chair, but she's moving around in the past. Whereas the other guy, the failed student, when he goes back in time to join her, he disappears and he's just an empty suit in the chair. His clothes are there, and when he arrives, he's buck naked. How come she didn't do that? That part wasn't explained. And anyways, so she tempts the jailer guy who's got the hots for her, some ugly dude, says, you got to be nice to me because you're going to die pretty soon or something like that. And her inner voice tells her to play along with it. So she does. Then she bangs her chain over the guy's head, and she escapes. Then she hides in the coffin in the gravedigger's carriage. It's got a lot of people from Rock All Night. It's got Dick Miller, Bruno VeSota, and one other guy from Rock All Night, Mel Wells. So the hipster older beatnik guy from Rock All Night is smoking the gravedigger in this one. So a lot of recycled AIP actors. And it's also got what's her name? It's got Billy Barty from the Hooker Goes to Washington. A lot of exploitation actors in this one. Dorothy Neumann from Private Parts. Anyways, and then it's got, of course, Allison Hayes, the white woman with the big shoulders. She was in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. So a lot of interesting actors in this one. Anyways, getting back to the story, she's in love with this Prince guy, and he hides her in his room in the cottage inn. But then the innkeeper guy gets decapitated. One of the things that irked me about this movie, one of the reviewers on IMDb said that you can't really criticize this movie for being low budget, but if you're going to do decapitations, how much does it cost to show the decapitations on camera? I mean, how cheap is that? All of the decapitation scenes, and there are 4 of them, are off camera. That really irritated me, and I don't know why they just couldn't use some kind of paper mache thing to make it look like a decapitation. It would have actually made the movie better, okay? Even if it was just a cheap paper mache thing. But they only spent $70,000, and you couldn't even... I mean, they spent $70,000, which was a lot of money back in 1957, okay? And they couldn't even do a decapitation scene because they ran out of money to pay all these actors. I don't know. It just seems strange to me. And this movie gets 4.3 out of 10 on IMDb out of only 1,576 ratings. But my review is kind of similar. It's about a 4. So actually I'm a little bit lower than how most people rate this terrible gothic horror from 1957. This guy who reviewed it, Rainy Dawn, he's giving it an 8.5 out of 10. I think that's way overrated. It's a review from January 22nd, 2016. And getting back to the story, okay, I'm going a little off topic here. So there's an evil witch and a good witch. Kind of reminded me of a Barry Mahon kids movie about the one of the Barry Mahon. It was The Wonderful Land of Oz. That's what it's kind of a mix between The Wonderful Land of Oz and some of the and also The Dark Shadows from around the same time, 1969. Anyways, the good witch is the private parts lady, and then the bad witch is the attack of the 50-foot woman lady. So the bad witch is able to transform into various animals. She's got her imp, Billy Batty, by her side. The happy hooker goes to Washington actor. And then the good witch, she's harboring Helene, the prostitute who transported back in time to be falsely accused of witch. And she's protecting her. There's also a gravedigger who lost his sanity thanks to witchcraft. She thinks that was the whole reason that the prostitute time traveler was accused of falsely of being a witch. She was the one who was accused of robbing the gravedigger's sanity. Anyways, so there's supposed to be a witch's Sabbath at 12 a.m. midnight where Satan appears. He appears in the beginning of the movie also. And so they conjure up Satan. They use the innkeeper's severed head, throw it in the fire, and Satan cures the leper, which is what Jesus did in the Bible. He cures the leper, and he gets the leper is actually Dick Miller in a brief cameo. Then Dick Miller's got the pitchfork on his hand. How many times have I seen that before? And I think the director of Kids has a pitchfork on his hand. Anyways, so he goes, and then another guy's got a leg problem. He sells his soul over to Satan. He has to sign his name, each one of them, and he's done. And then the attack of the 50-foot woman, which she gets the noble knight to come up and sign his name, but then the failed student goes back in time. I don't know how the professor was able to object to everything this failed student was doing, and yet he hypnotized him to go back in the past against his own argument. So that didn't really make sense. But he goes back in time. He steals the knight's outfit with this ridiculous bucket helmet. Looks like something from Monty Python. And then he goes and crashes the Satan's witch party there. He tells him to hold off, and he can sign later if things don't work out. So he brings the knight to the good witch who's harboring Helene, and Helene sees her lover. They embrace, but then the failed student guy, I think his name is Quentin or something, almost like Quentin Collins from Dark Shadows. Anyway, he tells the private parts witch, the good witch, that Helene has a choice. She can die now and live infinite number of lives. Don't ask me how or why. He briefly mentioned to his professor that it was some kind of Tibetan trick that was used, which leads me to believe that it involves some type of Buddhism. I don't know. It's all very confusing. I'm just speculating, pure conjecture on my part, but Tibet, usually when I hear Tibet, I associate it with Buddhism for some reason. Maybe because the Dalai Lama is there. Anyways, getting back to the movie. So she has a choice. She can either die now, live infinite number of lives in the future, or she can live out her life in the past and never live again. And Satan appears, and Quentin goes over to the rock where Satan is, and he lifts up his hand, and he reveals that the prostitute changed her moral servitude simply by living out Elaine's warm heart, or some kind of nonsense. And her other lives are going to be like nurse and teacher and stuff like that. All the good professions, quote unquote. And anything but prostitution. So she sees that her future lives are going to be fulfilling and full of joy. So she rushes to the executioner, the guy who's lopping off heads into the basket. The big hooded guy. How many times have I seen that? And he's lopping off the head of the other two witches, and she runs up, but her knight is chasing her to save her from impending doom. That sort of thing. I don't know. It was a good story. It had some major plot holes, as I mentioned. It's very cheap. For $70,000, I thought they could have directed the money a little bit better towards the special effects department. Maybe do some on-screen decapitations. But anyways, I spent a long time reviewing it. It moves very fast. It's very confusing, and if I had to choose between this and Dark Shadows, I would pick Dark Shadows from about 12 years later. It just had too many elements of the Barry Mahon kids movie in it. Especially the Good Witch reminded me of Barry Mahon infamous kids movie called The Wonderful Land of Oz, which is one of the Oz books. Anyways, that movie's been lampooned by riff tracks. I wonder if this one's gotten the MST3K or the riff tracks treatment, because it deserves it for sure. I watched it on YouTube with the two Hunter S. Thompson lookalikes, smoking their cigarettes and drinking Bloody Marys. They got a lot of trivia tidbits about this movie. If you want to check it out, it's on YouTube. I don't know how they got a hold of the rights to this movie, but it's probably public domain at this point. Anyways, enough about the movie. I don't have much to say about the coronavirus other than, my trip to Safeway was kind of interesting. I got in pretty quick, and I waited in line, but I'm talking about last week, like Friday or something. I got in pretty quick. I waited in line. I got in pretty quick, and I got some stuff. It wasn't really that much of a hassle. I go to self-service now just to avoid that whole ridiculousness. And I went there yesterday, Sunday, to get some Himalayan pink salt and some paper towels, which they did have in stock. They didn't have any toilet paper right next to it, the empty shelves right next to it, but there were maybe 10 rolls of the Safeway and a bunch of the Bounty on the side, just kind of in some kind of cardboard thing. And so I grabbed a couple that were like $8 for 2 rolls. Ridiculous. Then I got some Himalayan pink salt, which is another $5 for a big jar like this. So I can get that from Safeway now. I didn't realize that Safeway had it. I've been getting it from Trader Joe's, but then Trader Joe's kind of ticked me off with their squirting the hand sanitizer to the people waiting in line. I don't think they're doing that anymore. By the way, I noticed when I went to Daly City last week, they stopped doing that. So people must have complained about it, or they must have lost a lot of customers like me. But anyways, I'm going to ask my coworker when I go to work later today, my second job, if when he's going to give me a buzz cut. So you might see military style hairdo in a couple days, or maybe a day or two. What day is today? Today is, what's the date today? It is the 30th, and we got one more day. So maybe Wednesday I'll get my buzz cut in a couple days. Anyways, if you're watching from Australia, that would be Thursday when you'll see my new hairdo. So hopefully I'll look younger, and I haven't had a buzz cut in a long time. It's been like 25 years, I think, or maybe less than that, but I used to get it cut every month. Now I wait every 2 months. So my hair looks a lot longer towards the end of the 2 months. And like a dummy, I didn't go before the coronavirus hysteria hit, and 80% of the businesses were shut down thanks to the communist turds who work for the various government health agencies now. So that's about it. My coworker got his haircut right before he felt like he was pretty smart for doing that, and I was a big dummy for not doing it. Made me feel dumb, but anyways, I think I can get my coworker to give me a buzz cut on Wednesday, hopefully. So that's the end of my review. Enough about the coronavirus. I keep